Welcome. I want to thank everybody for joining us for this this webinar focused on answering the question, how does UNC Innovation make human and economic impact? Before we jump in, there are a couple of things I want to just raise a point about. We've scheduled this or planned this as a briefing session first, and then we'll have a Q&A section later in the webinar. I want you to feel free to enter questions into the chat at any time, and we'll collect those and answer as many of those as we can at the end. If you have a question directed at a specific team member, I want you to please add their name to your question, and we'll make sure that it gets directed accordingly and chime in if we need to. So first, who are we? Normally we will produce a regular report of data, usually in February and July, around our economic impact and our sort of startups. Innovate Carolina is a group that guides and amplifies the people and ideas driving innovation. And our focus here has been really on thinking about how do we take the wonderful partners that we have around campus, around the university, around the Chapel Hill, and make sure that we're partnering to pull together the right tools, the right talent, the right connections, focused on taking an idea, moving it to action, taking an action and moving that to impact. So we are really a comprehensive innovation pipeline producer that really focuses on the UNC's research excellence, and that we're quite fortunate to have a wonderful base of research at this university. And that base is stimulated by a set of expert talent around the campus and a whole host of real world partnerships. All of those things come together to help innovators not just survive, but really thrive and focus on measuring measurable outcome. Over the course of the last 2 years, really the last year, we've been focusing on how do we pull together that mission and that vision into an impact framework. Why a framework? Well, the reason we use a framework is a framework gives you enough structure to be able to move things forward over a longer period of time. We're talking about something that could be decadal here, but it also gives you enough flexibility to be able to shift and turn as you need to pivot. And there's one thing that's for certain, is that things will change, and we have to live in a very dynamic environment. So we're working to ensure that UNC's innovations serve the greater good and drive resilience. We pulled together the framework for that called Be Seen, and that is focused on building a UNC Innovation Excellence pipeline. It's focused on supporting, and supporting is about enhancing the resource allocation. And that resource is both dollars, it's people, domain expertise, it's experiences to make sure we're vetting and testing and pressure testing ideas and pitches before they go out. It's a full spectrum of services that are designed to help support innovations and move them along in that pipeline. We're working on elevating, and elevating is about championing and recognizing innovation impact. How do we tell the story better from idea to impact? How do we look at the pivots and the turns and the twists that happen along the way and see how they've made the idea better? They tempered it and made it better to an outcome. And in this instance where there might be a failure, what do we learn from those failures? Being able to elevate those messages and share them in partnership with our campus partners in communications and across the campus. And then engage. How do we open and connect pathways in UNC Innovation ecosystem in ways that help us to make sure that the network is strong and solid and continues to be very fruitful? And ultimately nurture, promoting the idea of innovation for the public good, and beyond that, thinking about how do we take an ecosystem, a sub-ecosystem, focus on fostering prototyping early and hopefully often, quick iterations. The vision is for a campus and a community that is a culture where every idea and is able to achieve its full potential to not just survive, but to thrive. And our promise is to be a place where Carolina innovators thrive, and encourage you and invite you to look at the QR code there for more information on the framework. We had a great year. The year included us being recertified as an Innovation and Economic Prosperity institution. That's one that's a designation by the APLU. We have worked for that, had it for 5 years, reapplied, went through the rigorous assessment, and were able to be recertified. That means that we're leaning into innovation in a way that builds the right infrastructure, and we're embracing our responsibility to encourage economic prosperity from the research and innovations that come out of the university. We actually had launched a partnership with the Provost Office, the AI initiative, at UNC, and that's been a special interest group that's really grown in leaps and bounds. If you think about the first few 10s or 20s, 100, and I think we're now up to 700 or so people that are involved in that effort, actively engaged, finding people seeking out others who are interested in the impact of AI that it may have on our lives and our work and our research. Speaking of work, the future of work is an area that we focused in for the last year. We released a report in April that came out of a year-long effort focus, including a summit that we held here with 50 participants from across the country. We then focused in on 11 of those innovation hubs and districts and sort of asked the question, how will the university's innovation hubs shape the future of work? That was in concert with UIDP and UI Collab, and it actually helped to buttress some of the work that was going on in the Council of Competitiveness in this same topic. We've had a number of downloads for that report, and we did a webinar before that was the teaser for the release, which is a similar version of what we're doing here now and releasing what will be our biennial Innovation Impact Report, the first of which will come out in a few weeks. We launched the National Academy of Inventors chapter. We've been a part of that group for a while, but we have a chapter here now on campus. And we started to look at the Carolina Innovation Eco-Map. Well, we asked the question a few years ago. I had a chance to climb Kilimanjaro, and I could not have done that without my Sherpa, who helped to guide me and lead me and sort of carry the load along the way. We have a number of resources here at UNC, and our goal is to figure out how do we expose those resources to everyone that needs them. And the Carolina Innovation Eco-Map is one of the tools that we just recently launched to be able to do that. And so I encourage you to look there. Now, I want to shift focus a bit and jump into the substance of what we want to talk about here, which is the impact report. And in doing that, I'd be remiss if I didn't stop and say thank you for a number of contributors. We've got representative contributors from all over the campus, all of whom have been a part of the network, a part of the work that we're doing here. Innovation is a team sport, and the work that we do here really relies on the inputs from all of these folks, and we want to just say thank you. Thank you for your partnership in the past, and we thank you immensely for the partnership you will have in the future as we move Be Seen deeper into practice, building off of the metrics that we established last year and the outputs that we're seeing here. Key point, commercialization is on the rise. We're seeing commercialization go up in all metrics. And what you're seeing in front of you is a graphing of 4 core metrics: invention disclosures, issued U.S. patents, provisional patent applications, and IP-based startups. And you can see that we've looked year over year. The purple is 2023, the darker blue is 2024, and then the light blue, the Carolina blue, is 2025. And you can see in each of these areas, and almost all of them, 2025 have been breakout years for us. And we're quite proud of what we see there, and we'll talk to you more about them in all areas. There was a little bit of a dip in provisional patents, but really, essentially, that was on par with some prior years, and still quite a breakout. So double-digit commercialization growth has occurred in each of these 4 core metrics. If you look at invention disclosures, it's grown 21% between 25 and 24 and 25. New provisional patent applications took a dip in 24, but is back up, and that's now grown 30%. If you look at issued patents, the issued patents in U.S. patents is at an all-time high for us. It's up 30% over 2024, but that's an indicator of some other elements that we'll talk about in just a moment. And then looking at IP startups launched. When I came in a few years ago, we were at the sort of a 5-6 range for startups and knew that that's something that we could probably get to the point of doubling in short order, but thinking about where do we ultimately want to be. In 2023, we were at 5. In 2024, we were nearly a doubling factor of that at 9, and at a record year of 12. If you can look at 2020 and 2021, we were at 12 there, but the balance between the two, between the pandemic and the year after, there's probably some pent-up demand there. And that number is probably more like 7 or 8 between those 2 years. That said, you can clearly see the up and to the right area that we've got in these 4 metrics, representing about a 20% year-over-year growth in these 4 core. Now, a record year for IP-based startups. First and foremost, I want to pause and say we are at 197 IP-based startups for all time, and we did 12 last year. That's up 33% over versus the 3-year average. And it really does indicate a blowout if you think about over the 2023 to 2025, 140% growth in that area from the baseline there. That's impressive. That's hard work from the team, and it's really hard work from the faculty who are hopefully helping us to drive those disclosures at the front end and the patent outcomes at the back end. Because if you think about it, in the pipeline, it is both the inputs for the invention disclosures out of the research work that's being done and moving those through to through patents and licenses. We've got another number we should be proud of. 42 products on the market, and that's as of 2006. We've seen 7 products come onto the market in the last 3 years. That's the currency of the realm. And if you think about the fact that we actually have these products impacting human lives every single day, that is something that we should be very proud of. So we want to see that number continue to grow. We were at 38 a couple years ago, and around and we said when we get to somewhere between 40 and 45, we're going to have a big celebration and celebrate that milestone. I think we want to align that with getting to 100 and 200 companies launched. And as you can see, we're really within striking distance of both of those things happening. And earlier we talked about the rise in patents, but I want to put that in context. The National Academy of Inventors produces a listing of patents and institutions that have the highest number of patents, the top 100 every year. They've done it for 11 years now, and we've been in there every year. But if you look at 2023, we were just barely. There was a conversation I had in coming in that we were in danger of sort of falling out of this. I want to be clear. We're not driven by rankings, but rankings are an interesting indicator externally of where we are and how we're doing. So looking at them in the fullness of time, not just fixating on any one year, is an important trend for us, a set of trend analyses. If you look at, we've had a great growth over the years in our research, and we're tracking quite well for a while in our innovation as measured by the number of patents issued, but that started to fall off. And so we've had a market rebound here, up 32 spots, the largest single rise in our history in this ranking, bringing us to 62, and in the US 39, but we know that there's more to do. And so we're off to a fantastic start. And this is the point in the game when we can actually continue to invest and work together and partner to say, how do we think about where we want to be, and how do we continue to be a force in the space, recognized as a leader in the area of bringing our research into practice. UNC startups. So I want to talk here first about the way we think about UNC startups. These are UNC DNA companies. They include IP-based companies, UNC-assisted companies, and independent companies. And those are companies that are started by faculty or alumni within 2 or 3 years of graduating. So it's actually probably an underestimate. There's some that say we should think about expanding that, but it's a good number that we've looked at for the last decade, and it's been able to help us to understand where we are with respect to our impact. And so we should be quite proud. There's a lot of pride in these numbers, I think, that you can find. 1,275 companies, startups of all time. 685 of them are still active, and about 537 of those are headquartered in North Carolina. You can see the 32 counties on this slide that are represented by North Carolina. One would expect that would have some concentration in and around Chatham, Orange, Durham, and Wake, but you can look at the fullness and see that it's not the only place that we're seeing the 131,000 jobs, the 14,530 that are in North Carolina, and the $22.6 billion in revenue that is generated by these. Of course, there are a few big ones that drive the mix here, but collectively, the impact of UNC is felt and should be recognized. There's about $50 billion in total funding raised by all of our UNC startups in the fullness of time, and this is actually dating back to the 50s, 1958. Look at our IP-based companies, they're about 15% of the mix. The UNC assisted is about 67%, and the independent are about 18%, representing alumni, staff, faculty, and students as the collection of founders that we have in this mix. Now I want to focus in on IP-based companies. That's the 15% I talked about earlier of the bigger mix. There are about 197 of those. We're knocking at the door of 200. 108 of those are active, and 83 of those are headquartered in North Carolina, representing 11 different counties in the state. That represents $14.6 billion of total funding, and the total jobs in North Carolina are over 1,200. The revenue there in North Carolina is 168 million. And if you look at the products and services that we're generating, about 80% of those software and IT, research tools, med devices, and therapeutics. And there's actually a large room to growth, partnering continuously with Eshelman and others in drug delivery, and maybe some opportunities in material science. Research tools is also another area we have a lot of opportunity. And so we're excited about being able to realize this opportunity and turn it into something that we can measure in future impact reports. So as I said, 79% of our active UNC startups are headquartered in North Carolina. Let's stop and just let this slide soak in for a moment. 537 companies headquartered in North Carolina, 32 counties that are covered, 14,500 jobs, and 81% of the annual revenue earned by UNC startups is generated by firms headquartered in North Carolina. This is an economic engine for the state. Now, we think about how you spur that engine along, and the S in our BCing model is really about support. That's both domain-specific support as well as support for finances. And so we've had about $117 million in the fullness of time in UNC Innovation gap funding. What is gap funding? Gap funding is the thing that sits between the early work that the research work you do that's on the edge of potential commercialization, so the high potential, and that work that's on the other edge across the sort of what I call the trough of the ditch of death, not the valley. But on the other side for funding, things that are high potential, are not yet ready, but not yet proven, maybe need a little bit of a push early on. And those come in a couple different categories. And we're calling them just-in-time grants, catalyst grants, growth grants, scaling grants in the UNC Investor Program. I should emphasize here that this work is in partnership with a number of folks across the campus, as you can see through here. What we tried to do is represent the fullness of the investments and the fullness of the outputs in this impact report. So 170,000 in just-in-time grants, and those are grants that are sub 25K, really at the point of pain. That includes our student venture fund, the pitch competition, the Gillings pitch competition, the Carolina Pitch Fest, and the ICS Director Fund. We have some that are a bit larger, just sub in that range of 25 to 50K. Those are things like our TIP award, the Kickstart Grant Awards, our Innovation Pilot Awards that are done by Medicine and UNC Health, Fast Track Awards, and our CTS Pilot Grants. There were about $1 million given out there in FY25 as a part of the $25.3 million all time. There's $1.4 million in growth grants, and those are grants up to $150,000, but between really $50,000 and $100,000 is sort of the sweet spot. And those are things like the ICS Agile grants, where we gave 2 of those in FY25 at $435,000. The OTC tech development grants, there were 2 of those in FY25 of $204,000 in that number, about $1.3 million all time. And then in Gillings, about $500,000 across 6 grants. And UNC-Chapel Hill, in that area, we use that as a block grant for investments for 37 different companies. So $150,000 is a block grant to really focus on accelerating companies, not individual companies, but as a group, accelerating a cohort of companies. We look at scaling grants, those in excess of $150,000. We partnered with UNC Innovation. They're doing fantastic work there. $2.1 million in FY25 across 6. And then the CTS I2I awards, about $500,000 too in FY25. I want to take just a moment to speak about the Carolina Angel Network. We've done over the last year really work to reinvigorate that as an affiliate part of supporting the ventures that come out of UNC or have UNC DNA. And they deployed about $2.4 million in FY25 across really 2 major investments. So just under 1,925 translational projects have been funded of the $117 million of all time in innovation funding, and the results are there. If you look at those things, of those 1,900 projects, only about 1,000 of those became startups and received some funding, and the ability to raise funds from those that got dollars from our gap funding is substantially more than the dollars that they received. We don't have one accelerator. We actually have a portfolio of accelerators. And that accelerator includes the Student Innovation Accelerator 1789, the Kickstart Accelerator for faculty, We have the Eshma Innovation and Therapeutics Accelerator and the Venture Studio, Digital Health Venture Studio, largely focused on faculty, and the Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship Lab for students, faculty, and alumni. I will take a moment and just take a moment to call out Launch as well, which is a partnership between Innovate Carolina and the town, or UNC and the town, and brings together students, faculty, alumni, and community. Now, if you think about all of these, and of course, there are some startups that are served by multiple of these incubators, but it gives us a really good roadmap to understand what the portfolio of opportunity is for accelerating. And this is representative, not completely exhaustive, but if you look at something like UNC-Chapel Hill and the work that we've done there, in FY25, 5,942 jobs. They've raised substantial capital, and a number of the portfolio companies that have come out, close to 500, about half of them are still quite active in the area. So these are the tools, part of the tools that we're using to sort of work to continue to grow our innovation ecosystem at UNC. And when we think about the innovation and the entrepreneurship ecosystem, we have to think about really three phases. We think about those phases as what is the all? The all is innovation entrepreneurship awareness. How do we think about making sure we have something that is available not just for a select few, but for everyone, and everyone can't be a part of everything. So understanding how do we grow innovation and entrepreneurial awareness is the first phase. The second phase is what do we have for the many? And the many is really thinking about how do we grow entrepreneurial mindset? How do we encourage creativity and curiosity, design thinking and systems thinking? And if we build those things, we go from just, I have an awareness of the skills, the tools, the communication mechanisms, I understand the language. I can now start to think more in the step two about the mindset of curiosity, systems thinking, and other supporting methods of problem solving and solution development. And lastly, for the few, we want them to move to innovation and entrepreneurial intention. So being able to have the intention to create a venture, a product, or a service, and add to that mix of the 42 that are on the market or the 197 companies that start up, whether they be commercialized ventures or otherwise. We start to really focus in on our social impact pipeline as well to understand the things that aren't commercializable, but how do they have an impact and how do we measure those and track those in a way that we can be supportive either ourselves or through our partners. That activation that you see in the lower part of this brings together a couple of different items. It's understanding what we will see in the regular classroom, problem identification, solution development, but moving it on to understanding how do we think about scaling up, starting, or in some instances, quitting. That as an underlying framework helps us to say, how do we train Carolina innovators and entrepreneurs? Well, we've had since 2008 about 4,000 faculty students trained via our I&E fellowships and our skills programs. That includes clinics and internships and workshops and co-curricular experiences. We have about 32 faculty, postdocs, and students and I&E fellows active in FY25. But this, again, is a landscape that looks at the set of partners that are bringing together many components that pull together the mosaic that is the training program for Carolina innovators and entrepreneurship. In arts and sciences, the Schufert program internship and the Schufert Away program, the Carolina Angel Network Fellows, the Kickstart Venture Fellows, the Design and Innovation for Public Good Fellows, the Institute for Innovation in the School of Law, all are representative ways to think about students, faculty, and a hybrid of faculty, students, and postdocs coming together for training. About 2 years ago, we launched the Junction. I joked that my mother was an English teacher. I came in early to sort of cut the ribbon on the Junction in partnership with a number. And there was a wonderful little ditty that I spoke about at the beginning, conjunction, junction, what's your function? It's putting words and phrases together that work right. And the junction here is really about bringing together a community of innovators and related friends and partners to help grow that ecosystem. And so we've got 76 companies that work in the UNC hub downtown. That's up 41% since 24. We've got about 250 individual co-working members, up 20%, and we have really blown out the activities in the Junction. If you walk in, it is a hive of activity and innovation, a hive of energy. Some of that spurred by Meantime branches there, but it is sort of the community that's there thinking and growing together, particularly our student innovation community and the incubator there at 1789. We were somewhere around just under 400, and I challenged the group not to stop at 400, but to think about how do you grow pretty transformatively over the course of the next decade. How do you get to the point where you're not just 400 or 500, but you're thinking about 4,000, a substantial percentage of the population. And we're working diligently to think about those as mechanisms. In March, we launched a new partnership with KPMG and launched powered by KPMG. 10 companies selected, about half of those are AI-based companies. This is a really interesting partnership. We brought an industry partner together with us in the town and said, let's unlock the potential of your customer base, your knowledge base, your pursuing a technology, put it with our talent and our research base, and let's see what happens. And so far, it's been magical, both in the two cohorts that have come out, and in the summer cohort, we relaunched the way we did the UNC Innovate Summer to help with students who are starting to launch their ventures. Regional hub engagement and impact. There are three areas I'd like to focus in on here. We think about entrepreneurial ecosystem building, and there are really three projects we had this year, three areas. We're in Chatham County in Pittsburgh, we're at Wake Forest, North Carolina, and we've even done some work out in Wilmington, spreading that sort of triangle in a way that thinks about, in partnership with UNC Wilmington, what are the ways that we can bring our expertise and the energy that we have here into various communities that ask us to come in to help start to build on that ecosystem and that the infrastructure and the network necessary to make sure that North Carolina continues to be a powerhouse. That work is promising. And that work is work that we won't necessarily be in for all of the time, but we'll be in for a period of time to build up capacity and help to add to the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We've got three collaborations in Triangle Venture Showcase. We've got the Triangle Venture Showcase with UNC, NC State, Duke, and NC Biotech. And then we've got a startup boot camp. There are two that we've done, one in therapeutics and one around devices and non-regulated products, which have trained a substantial number of faculty and researchers. And then ultimately, we've got a tip of work project, which brings in Burke County. And that's been a really interesting engagement and partnership with Gillings and Innovate Carolina and Burke County Health and our DIPG group to really think about the unhoused or the homeless experience and looking at street medical practices for people in those scenarios. That was regional, but our impact grows. Our impact has national impact emphasis. About a decade ago, I started a program with the National Science Foundation called Innovation Corps. And what few people know is that one of the first campuses I came to was UNC, as just sort of talk to the NACI group and understand whether or not this made sense at the nation, but better yet, whether or not this was something that could work in a region like North Carolina. And here we are, and my goal was to sort of pull together an NSF about $7 million to get this going. Here we are with a program here that's quite powerful in partnership at UNC with the Mid-Atlantic Node. And those companies, 11 years later, 14 years later, have raised $7 million after participating in the I-Corps program. We spoke about the Innovation Hubs and the Future of Work report, which came out of a 50 Innovation Hub Leaders Summit representing 22 states. That report looks deeply at 11 Innovation Hubs interviewed, and it's been distributed now, mostly in e-form, but some print, to 25,000 distributions. It's gotten a lot of attention, really focused on the work that we're doing in Innovate Carolina and the Junction, and how that work leads to district level thinking and how it impacts the way that we work and grow and learn and build together. And lastly, about a year ago, we started thinking about who are our cousins, who was around us, who was close, who were the kind of people that we needed to be having conversations with that we might learn something from. We pulled together 100 AAU and APLU institutions and benchmarked 5 different cities, or 5 that came out as the strongest close cousins: Davis, Logan, Ames, Iowa, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Charlottesville, Virginia, Davis, California, and Logan, Utah. And this was both a quantitative review, 81 data measures, and a qualitative review, engaging with 90 university and city leaders in this interview process. I want to be clear, there are a set of folks that we measure ourselves against all the time, but this was sort of saying, and what else? What are the things that we might learn from other areas that look like us in the way of the dynamics and size and proximity to an MSA, those sort of characteristics. And we learned a lot, and they learned a lot from us, and there will probably continue to be an exchange in those areas. So we think about how do we build this pipeline? We have to think about how do we take the partnership with our high translation of potential research. How do we think about priority classifications of those spaces? And we're fortunate that the UNC Research Roadmap exists from the Office of Research that can be helpful in informing the classification that we have here. And think about what are the other candidates that we might do to look at tracking, reviewing, assessing, co-forming, executing, and getting to the point where the impact that we're trying to make happen here continues to grow. The products on the market continue to grow, and the startups go to 200 and beyond. So that's the focus. And I want to shift gears now from our conversation and an overview to more of a dialogue. As I said, innovation is a team sport, and we've got a wonderful set of partners across the campus, but we also have a great set of leaders here in Innovate Carolina that are doing their own respective work to lead us and guide us in these areas. So I'm going to ask them to join us on camera here in the panel, and we will begin fireside chat. If I get all the folks to come on, hopefully you guys will be able to see them. Welcome, welcome.
As everyone's popping on, just a reminder that if you have any questions for any of these panelists while Dr. Carter's chatting with them, go ahead and drop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll have some time at the end to circle back to as many as we can.
Yeah, we look forward to that. Please
Hey there.
do.
Kemi says my host has disabled my video, so you're going to need to activate me.
Me too.
All right. So we're as always, there's always a thing or two that we need to work through. And I think we've got the full team here now. Hey guys, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
So let's imagine that we've got a fireside here. Let's imagine that we're all around our half circle arc. It is that false fall. We need to keep warm. I'm going to first start off with Kelly and Jackie. So and this is talking about commercialization and licensing. And to give you guys a bit of the format, I'm going to ask some questions and we're going to engage in a quick dialogue here. I'd love to focus on some trends that we're seeing in commercialization. So we've seen lots of positive traction. We talked about disclosures and patents. We talked about IP-based companies. But as you and I all know, the truth is commercialization isn't just kind of a start and stop. It's not really transactional. It's about the long-term relationship and the partnership. It's thinking about how you engage with the inventor, the university, and the key partners, and the investor stakeholders. And those are things you have to think about over the long arc. So with that as a backdrop, commercialization is happening every day in some ways. It starts hopefully every day on campus. There's some research idea that's getting jotted down into a lab notebook. From my heart to yours, I hope you're actually protecting that and disclosing it. But they all have some market potential. And what I love for you to talk about is some of the momentum that we're seeing in commercialization at Carolina. What's exciting you about the momentum that you're seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a faculty member and you haven't heard from someone on our team, you probably will shortly. We're spending a lot of time getting out, talking to folks, trying to dispel some myths. I know there's some assumptions that you have to have a great invention that's fully fleshed out before you come speak to us. And, I think as we're talking to folks, we're realizing that frankly, we'd love to get engaged early. And as you've seen from Dr. Carter's presentation, that there are a growing amount of resources, including inside the institution, that we can utilize to help you move your project forward, right, and to enable that innovation. And so, we are seeing more folks really sitting down with us, having those conversations early, and I think that's really going to pay off for us in the long run. I think the other myth that I want to dispel is I think there are folks that think if they show up in our office, that we are expecting them to be a founder, start a company, right? And if that's you, we're 100% here to help. Judy can certainly speak to that. But if what your interests are is more around how do I create the most impact from my research, we can do that, and there are multiple means to achieve that goal. And so, we are seeing people understand that there are different avenues and there's different ways we can help. And we're always eager to engage.
Yeah, that's great. Many different ways that you can have an impact from the laboratory to life, or from your work to the human condition, and we're ready to help you in any of those methods. I'm going to shift now to Judy. Actually, before I ask Judy a question, I'm just going to say, Kelly, some really cool numbers there on companies forming. Is there any? Do you have a favorite child? Is there any one company that just kind of stands out? I'm not supposed to ask that question, but any one company that kind of jumps out at you is like, wow, that's interesting.
No, I don't think there's a favorite. Fortunately for those out there with the startups that we work so closely with. I think for us, obviously, I've been at the university a long time, with tech transfer to 2008, and I understand this is a long game, right? And so I think what's exciting for me is to watch these opportunities mature, right? And to see the entrepreneurs mature. I've seen folks go from really just dipping their toe in the water and having no idea what they were doing to now being very seasoned, asking great questions, pushing new ideas forward in ways that are fantastic, and they're probably headed towards successful launch. So, I guess for me, it's those folks that I've worked with over the years that have seen how they progress and how their startups have progressed that are probably nearest and dearest to my heart.
I love it. So Judy, I'm going to ask a question for you. We're sort of noticing really a shift in how research-based startups are emerging from the university, especially here at UNC. Our startup portfolio reflects some interesting changes over the last 5 years. From your perspective, you work very closely with a number of the companies navigating the funding, the spin-out strategy, recent trends you've observed. Can you tell us what approaches are these companies taking to build long-term sustainability?
Thank you for that question. And I've thought carefully about this because I'd say over the last 5 years, especially, I've noticed two approaches that our portfolio has continued to thrive upon engaging. And the first is the fact that they have this incredible success rate when it comes to acquiring small business funding. And by small business funding, what I'm referring to here specifically are SBIR and STTR grants. And so our unit within Innovate Carolina, which is Kickstart Venture Services, we provide support for startups to work with grant writers who specialize in small business funding grants. And we've seen the probability of these companies being funded increase by 6-fold because of this kind of engagement. And then thinking about, again, within the last 5 years, a second trend that I've noticed is that it's not just UNC companies, but also UNC faculty who are now identifying intentionally unmet needs of the customers that would benefit from their R&D. And this is true beyond just the acquisition of small business grants, but also for translational research funding. And I would say that's because as of 2022, that's when UNC began providing the NSF I-Corps program. And now we see customer discovery has actually played a really significant role in encouraging innovators to not just think about their research in an academic sense, but to consider the commercial impact of what they do.
Yeah.
Then,
Go ahead.
yes, please.
I was going to ask you to unpack customer discovery for us just quickly. Yeah.
Customer discovery is often thought of as the opportunity to, market a solution or the answer to the problem that you've been trying to solve within the lab. But I really want to stress here that customer discovery is about doing your own diligence and identifying whether or not what you have is something that would actually be used and translated for the public good. So rather than working on your ideas and your science in isolation, having the opportunity to speak to those that you believe would benefit from your technology and understand what are they currently doing, is it working or not, will help you refine and create a solution that they will actually adopt.
So tempering that feedback to come up with a better, if there truly is an unmet or undermet need. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to look over to Greg because I want to talk about convergence. You lead the Institute for Convergent Sciences, and by name you would think that means researchers from different perspectives and areas of expertise converging, coming together to try to move ideas forward. And I guess the thing that I'd love to ask you to talk to us about is what work, what are some of the projects that you see emerging from the Agile grants, advanced great inventions or leave early, so that that you're supporting within ICS. What are some of the most salient? I asked Kelly what was her favorite child, and I'm not going to ask you what was your favorite child. I'm going to ask you what is a really intriguing salient grant that you'd love to be able to talk with us about.
Thanks for that question, Dr. Carter. It's one of my favorite questions. And I'm actually going to give you two projects. The first highlights the convergent nature of what we do. And it's a project that's guided by Jeff Stringer in the School of Medicine, Michael Kosarak in the School of Public Health, and Taranan Pokapuran in the School of Public Health as well. And this is bringing a technology that Jeff had primarily developed in Africa to serve folks who were quite a distance from any medical center that they could go to for high-risk pregnancies. And he realized that those would have the same kind of applications in rural America. And so he had developed this low-cost handheld ultrasound device that could be used to do ultrasound imaging of potentially high-risk pregnancies like ectopic pregnancies. And what he needed was a way to pair that with a mechanism to make the diagnostic calls from its output, because by the very nature of the situation it would be used in, there would not necessarily be a medical professional who could handle the output. And so we paid to have the output from that device trained on an AI, which is now making calls as good as, or if not better than, human practitioners. And we've given him follow-on funding to do a validation data set. And so what I love about that is that it not only brings people who wouldn't normally work together on a project, but it also brings two really powerful technologies together. And then very quickly, the second project that I'm really excited about highlights our desire to work with our defense-related research community in North Carolina. And this is a recent grant application. So we do both internal and external facing work with a PI on campus named Wu Ben Bai, who is developing technologies to make what are called smart bandages. So these have the ability to do real-time biosensing, but also to do the job that bandages normally do. So to help heal our warfighters, but also to give the medics that treat them real-time biostatistics to help make that treatment better. And so we've defined helping our defense-related research community here in North Carolina as part of the public good that we do at ICS.
That's great. That's a really great framing of that of the work, and in a very important area. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to look to you, and I'm going to ask you the question. So, we talk a lot about how the amount of support that's available. We talk about mentorship, training, education, lab spaces, or all sorts of things out there. But sometimes it's hard to figure out where to look and how to find it. And I know you've spent a lot of time thinking about how to bring a human-centered lens to this issue, helping people to really connect with the resources that are there. We spoke to some of that at the beginning. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing on how and where to look and what tools we have to help facilitate that work.
Well, to start, I think just to reiterate, the point you've made, there are a lot of resources and there are a lot of outcomes. So there's a lot of people that are jumping on and contributing to supporting and nurturing this work. And for the folks that are maybe in the pipeline, maybe they already know Kelly or Greg or Judy and their teams, they have a person that they already know that can help Sherpa them through this process. But for somebody who's just starting out, for somebody who maybe has not considered themselves as an innovator, or somebody that might be able to create something that's licensable or that could end up in a company or a spin out, it's really daunting. And so we took that pain point and created our Carolina Innovation Eco Map. And really what we've tried to do is to create one place where folks that have a question about starting their innovative journey, or maybe licensing the research that they're working on, that they can go and they can find the next step to take on their innovation journey. And what we're really hoping is not only do they just get to a website or find something online, but it gets them in touch with the right person who can help guide them through the next stage of their journey. we spent a lot of time up front trying to figure out who these people were that would be using and interacting with the map, from the novice innovator to the expert. And the map itself has been set up so that when one of those folks gets on, there are curated sets of information that is tailored to them in a way that they want to use it. So we hope that this is going to be a really impactful tool going forward to help both the novice innovator and the expert take that next step on their innovation journey.
That's great. And I know that you were really creative in the process you used to sort of pull this together. Often you see these things, they end up being stale the first day that they're launched, but we've tried to create something that's a living entity and connect it to the Innovation Network Forum. So I'm really thankful for your work there. Cheryl, Bill talked a little bit about this, being able to tailor things to the individual needs of specific folks, which is fantastic. But sometimes we take a step back and we think about the value of just being connected to the innovation community in ways that are sort of more aggregate. And often, innovation is better when it's done together. So you are leading our work in the Junction. I already did my ditty on the Conjunction Junction and the hub downtown. So it's really become an epicenter of entrepreneurial activity. What are some of the interesting examples of the intersections that you're seeing take place between the campus and community?
Yeah. So at the Junction, we see, students, we see faculty, we see startups, community entrepreneurs, all co-working in the same environment. And that physical proximity accelerates the collisions. You have students that are learning from seasoned founders. You have faculty members, faculty researchers that are meeting with industry mentors. You have local businesses that are benefiting from the university resources that we have. And it's really creating that open door, that bridge between the community and the university. That's a physical aspect, but we also have a number of other workshops and things of that nature. One of the more intentional communities that we have created is our AI community. And you touched on this a little bit. The AI community is a community is more than a community of more than 700 individuals that have some type of curiosity or involvement within AI, and they all come together around AI, from journalism to biology, business, and look at creating a cross-disciplinary network that can provide spinouts. We've designed and hosted a number of workshops that will allow people to learn and identify each other as potential partners from an AI perspective. And that cross-pollination really creates a lot of momentum that goes far beyond any single lab or a founder could achieve by themselves. So that's, the AI community is just one. Very recent, we actually, after the hurricane that impacted a lot of the businesses in Chapel Hill, the team within 5 days, kind of sprung into action and pulled together a flood relief event where we actually hosted a number of people who wanted to provide their support. They just didn't know how to get the message out. So we hosted them here. We had all of those businesses come through. I really appreciated just having it as a convening place. So it really allowed you to see that innovation can meet people and community when there's an urgent need, and the hub served that purpose.
That's great. Thank you. Brett, I'm going to sort of pull up to you and ask the question about landscape. I talked to Judy earlier about funding, but I want to talk to you about angel investing. You've been leading our efforts in CAN for the last year brilliantly, I think. And so that CAN investor membership is really growing. We're sort of seeing angel-backed companies have success. Talk to us about what trends you're seeing and why angel investing is an exciting area, both for investors and companies, and what creative things you're doing in that space that is in the support element of the Be Seen framework.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we have a lot of exciting and momentum and success to share. Over the past year, we've seen 5 of our 36 portfolio companies acquired. which brings our total capital return to our investors up to roughly around 11 million so far. In the past month, we've actually brought on 13 new members. And so all of those members join and are eager to fund early companies that have ties to Carolina. So with any network comes the benefits of network effects and the ability to tap into expert knowledge. We have over 110 members right now. And so they come from all different professions and backgrounds. Their expertise helps us vet new opportunities, and their professional networks help our companies move faster. A good example of this, so recently one of our companies, Vitrovax, they were awarded a $5 million CEPI grant. The relationship actually started with an introduction made by one of our members. You know, our members have invested over 31 million since the launch of our organization in 2017. We've made a lot of progress since then. We have an incredible pipeline too, and review over 150 companies every year. So shifting a little bit, as we look into the future, we want to do a lot more. We see a massive opportunity in expanding our role as an intermediary to support our existing portfolio and the earlier pipeline, especially the commercialization of IP at the university. Recently, we've explored unlocking philanthropic capital to bridge funding gaps for impactful startups. And so through leveraging a donor advised fund as an investment vehicle, we actually raised capital for one of our portfolio companies, Couplet Care, and financed their first inventory production run as a company. And so for our members in the broader Carolina community, we continue to look at creating a simple way to build an impact portfolio and deploy DAF dollars into an asset class that's typically unsupported by large national DAF sponsors. We're continuing to explore the utility of this novel approach, and we plan on launching a whole lot more additional opportunities that can directly support and fund the commercialization of IP. So I encourage anyone to reach out to us and keep an eye out for more in the next few months.
Keep your eyes open. We got a couple questions here. One from Joe Hart, and I'm going to put this to Kelly. What do you think has been the key change leading to growth and disclosures in UNC-based startups over the past year? Kelly, what are the lessons we've learned moving forward? Judy, you might want to chime in here, that can benefit UNC faculty and encourage this trend in IP behaviors.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just kind of building the next generation of innovators here at UNC. And, you know, obviously there's was a historic group of folks who really came in and pushed innovation in the 20 years ago, et cetera. And those folks have, you know, retired and moved on. And so now we're kind of seeing a resurgence of faculty across the institution and their trainees, grad students, postdocs who are getting excited about the impact they can make with their work. And we're starting to see that engagement. So a lot of new folks who are engaging with the office. You know, I think lessons learned. You know, I would say that we're happy to sit down with folks because I think that this is a long question to answer, and it really depends on what particular thing you're working on. I guess what I would reiterate to folks, especially when you're interfacing with our group, is that often the answer is, you know, if you come to us with an idea or something you think you want to patent or commercialize, I think when we say, okay, we're not going to file something today, a lot of people hear no. And most of the time it's not no, it's just not yet. There are other things we should do first. And there's other things we should do to mature the technology to the point that when we're ready to launch it or you're ready to start a company, that technology is in a good spot for receiving funding, for attracting partnerships, et cetera. So just understanding that this is definitely a relational business and it's a long-term process. And kind of working with us throughout that it's not just kind of stop off, get something stamped and move on. If we work together, that we have a much higher chance of achieving positive outcomes.
Yeah. So there are probably a couple other quick questions here, and we're not going to be able to get to all of them. You know, one of them was, does the National Summit that I referenced refer to a relationship with UIDP? And the answer is yes. There was a partnership that we have with UIDP and UI Collab on that summit. Cheryl, quick answer, is Innovate Carolina thinking of creating junctions in other cities with industry and campus communities? It sounds like a wonderful resource.
Yes, yes, and yes. Yes, we do have a hub and spoke strategy where we look to help the deployment of these type of resources throughout North Carolina, as we are as the university at large really looks to have and support citizens in North Carolina. So yes, we do hope to. We want to make sure that the junction's fully on its way.
Yeah. And there, John had a question about, do we have any data on the SBIR CTR award trends over the past 5 or 10 years UNC faculty have been involved in? Is it rising or decreasing? We do. And that's actually something I would encourage you to look at the impact report that'll be coming out. This is a teaser for the impact report. The actual impact report will be coming out in the next month. And where there are holes in it, what you're looking for, John, we can make sure that we get that information to you. Judy and our team are very switched on that impact. And I would also ask that Greg and Judy, we're not going to have a chance to answer that online, but I think that there's a really great sort of lessons learned over the course of the last couple of years as we see these things going up and to the right. To add to what Kelly was talking about, maybe there's something that we think about around what we're seeing, how faculty are being engaged, and what are some of the things that we want to replicate in this environment. We do have a faculty fellows program that DIPG runs, and that's another area we're seeing great success in. So we're coming to the hour, and I hate to be the one to sort of keep us moving, but I do want to say a couple of quick things as we end. One of them is thank you for your engagement and your participation in this webinar. It's been exciting for us to be able to share the excitement that we have over the work that we've done over the course of the last couple of years and been in partnership with a whole host of people across campus. We ask you to stay connected. Together we can do more. We are just at the precipice now, and there's, however the dynamic environment that we're in plays out, we can do more. And we want you to reach out, to stay connected, support us if you're able to, support UNC Innovation in whatever form. I want you to sign up for the newsletter and events, the blueprint. That's another great place to get information about us and what's happening. If you want to know about the UNC Innovation Impact Framework, strategic framework for the next 10 years, there's a QR code there. Connect with us on social media at Innovate Carolina, on Instagram or LinkedIn or on Facebook, or just send an email to VC Innovation and Innovate in UNC. We'd be remiss if we didn't say thank you to people, particularly the donors who are allowing us to stay, to take chances, to launch students, faculty ventures, build ecosystems, and really just help to keep this economic engine continuing to grow. Those donors are there, the Robertsons, Chris Hoover, Jim Kitchens, Jerry Lloyd Cudzel, the Joan and Chester Louie Foundation, and our just-in-time grants, the Institute for Convergent Sciences, the Clark family, the Edwards family, and the Brady family. And then for the Carolina Angel Network, all of those, if you're not a member of CAN, really think about it. Brett would love to get an email from you, right, Brett? And get you connected in some way. We think about Bernie Gray down in Atlanta, who's been a longtime supporter, Steve Lerner, who's a tireless advocate. There are others who are not mentioned here, but that network is just that. And we really want to thank all of you in the Innovation Network here. So thanks for investing in impact. Reach out, stay connected, or support us if you're able to. You can learn more about our student programs here or give to the Innovate Carolina General Fund. But stay committed to continuing to catalyze a place that empowers Carolina innovators, researchers, students, inventors, and entrepreneurs to thrive. We thank you and look forward to engaging with you in the future. There's more to come. Have a good one.